I think everybody that I talk to when I talk about the three Ps, I'm like, well, there's good sides and there's bad sides. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, I can see that, but not with procrastination. It's just bad. Like it's just bad. And that's not actually true.
Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. Hey friends, summer's coming, and just like we do some preparations for summer with maybe working out a little bit more, maybe eating a little cleaner to get our bodies ready for summer, I want to help you get your business ready for summer. So last week, I held a virtual workshop called the Summer Ready Success Workshop, and I had such great feedback from this, and maybe you missed it. And so I wanted to let you know that I have the replay up for you to go and watch, go and learn how to have balance with your family, with your self-care, with your just busy summer schedule, have strategies to boost your productivity and maximize your summer success. So you want to go to martinewilliams.com/summer. And this is where you're going to be able to watch the virtual training. You have a guide that goes along with it to help you actually implement the strategies that you learn. So again, go to martinewilliams.com/summer and let's get you summer ready for success. Well, welcome back to the show, friends. Today's episode is fire. We are going to be talking about the three Ps with my Turquoise Talk guest today: people-pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination. And here's the thing. This is what my guest said today that I think is going to blow your mind and maybe shift your perspective a little bit. She said procrastination can actually be a helpful tool. You are going to love this episode. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest, and then we'll dive right in. So coming from a background in natural health, Dawn Calvinisti has owned multiple businesses as a doula, a childbirth educator, a homeopath, and eventually an essential oil-based network marketing business. She spent 7 years building that business to multi-six figures and reached the top 3% of leadership in under 3 years. She loves to coach ambitious women looking to reach their next level, whether in their business or their personal life. As a recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, and procrastinator, Dawn has launched her podcast, Imperfection in Progress. I was actually a guest on that show, so you have to go over there and listen to that episode. And she really wants to help create community and actionable steps for women who want to move away from the three Ps and find more joy and less stress. She's living her best life in Guatemala with her husband, her three kids, and her three chihuahuas. Y'all, welcome Dawn to the show. Well, welcome back, friends. I'm so excited for today's Turquoise Talk guest. Dawn, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the three Ps.
I am super excited to be here and share about this with your audience. So
yes,
let's do it.
Yes. So if anyone listening struggles with people-pleasing, perfectionism, or procrastination, we're going to dive into those today. And I feel like everyone is raising their hands to at least one of those three because it's just part of entrepreneurship. I think it's part of motherhood. And the more honest we can get in having conversations like you and I are going to have today, Dawn, I think the more empowered we are to make the changes, right, that we need to make in these areas. So before we dive into those three Ps, tell us just a little bit about you and your journey into entrepreneurship and just kind of give us a little bit of your story.
Sure. Yeah. So I think I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16 and I was teaching piano lessons, and it kind of caught the bug that I don't really want to work for other people. I mean, I had on and off through my early years, but did not love having a boss. So I think I caught that bug and decided, I really need to make my own way in the world. And so I've done a lot of different things, but I think the thing that lights me up in every single area that I've ever been in is people. And I like to see when people suddenly have those aha moments
Mm-hmm.
and can move past wherever that block is, whatever that thing that has them stuck, and to be able to say like, okay, now I'm willing to move forward because it's not so big and scary anymore. And so for me, the most recent journey is in my podcast in the last year and a bit, and just starting to find other people like you and other entrepreneurs who are women who are just wanting to make change more quickly for others and less painless for others in things that they themselves have struggled in. And so that's really the thing that's lighting me up now. And, starting to investigate doing some retreats because I live in Guatemala, and, just be able to bring change with maybe a more beautiful venue as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And you have your own podcast. So tell them a little bit about your podcast.
So it's Imperfection in Progress, and it literally is for women who struggle with the three Ps. And I think,
Yeah.
like you said, if you're an entrepreneur, it tends to come with the territory, either one, two, or all three of them. And I think the majority of the people that I coach, that's what I see is these are the things that are hanging them up. And often, and we'll talk about this, but often we see them as such negatives, and we really struggle against them. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel differently. I feel like these are things that all have really good positive traits, and we need to embrace those traits. And then the things that do get us stuck, yeah, okay, let's work on that part and minimize that. But let's not say that we're never going to be a perfectionist, because if that's your bent, you're going to be fighting for the rest of your life to not be like that. And so
Yeah.
let's just work with the good things.
Yeah. Well, and I think we also have to be really careful of labels, right? And labeling ourselves a procrastinator or a people pleaser or perfectionist, because then it's almost like you just assume that identity. And then, of course, if you think you're a perfectionist, then guess what? You're going to be doing some of those things that you probably don't want to do. So I think it's really important for us to be careful how we're speaking to ourselves and how we're labeling ourselves. And I was a guest on your podcast, and I really just appreciated that, the opportunity as well to be on that podcast and talk about these things, because that's the beauty of podcasting, is being able to bring on guests who have similar stories or very different stories, but being able to talk about topics like this from your perspective and how you see things. So let's just dive right into, what are some strategies that you have found effective in overcoming that tendency to people please? Like it's everywhere. No matter what role you're
Yeah.
playing as a woman, it's just there. So when you think about personal life and business, like what strategies have you found effective to kind of overcome that urge to do those things, to be a people pleaser?
Yeah, I think one of the things that come up a lot with people pleasing is we tend to put everybody else's thoughts, ideas, and opinions above our own. And it
Mm,
often comes back to worthiness, right? So
yeah.
when we're struggling with that, like the base of that is, okay, why am I less than? Why am I the one that needs to give in to others? Why is it that I don't believe that I'm just as valuable, that my thoughts and
Mm,
my feelings and beliefs are just as valuable? And that's pretty deep work. Like all of these things
yeah.
obviously are not things that happen even in a few months or sometimes even in years. But I think the thing that I suggest the most often is take some time. And so if like on Fridays, you have the afternoon off or that type of thing, in that afternoon, decide for yourself before you get there, what are two things that I truly love doing for myself? Like if nobody was looking, if nobody was around, and I got
Hmm.
to pick what those things were, what would they be? And for true people pleasers, that might even be hard because you've been doing what
Hmm.
others want you to do or expect you to do, or you think you're supposed to be doing. And so it may even be saying, okay, what did I used to enjoy doing?
Yeah.
And I'm going to put a couple of those things into my schedule in that time on that space. And I'm going to see, do I still enjoy that? Is that something that lights me up? Is that something that I would choose to do again? Or is it not? Because we have to start peeling back the mask, really, that people pleasers wear to find out what is the belief system that I have for myself that is actually mine and is
Mm,
owned by me, and that I run things by if nobody else was in the picture. And so it takes a long time with people pleasing because you really have to get clear on
hmm.
who is me.
Right.
Which opinions are mine, which opinions have I taken on from somebody else, and what do I want to do now going forward, that I know that that might not be actually how I value life or do life.
Yeah. And that requires us to slow down. And I think
Hmm.
that's a hard part for so many, especially for high achieving, high performing, ambitious women. It's hard to slow down and do that work. And I love that you pointed out, like, this is not like we're going to flip a switch and you're no longer a people pleaser, because then you have all that shame that comes in. Like, why can I not just do this? Because you're used to just taking action and getting immediate results, especially in this culture today. I mean, we all want immediate gratification, but it took you a while to get to this place of constantly people pleasing. So it's going to take some time to unwind that, right? And like you said, kind of rediscover, what do I think about this, or what do I want to do? Even just this last weekend was my birthday, and I really was very intentional about, like, what do I really want to do on my birthday weekend, and not just what other people think I should be doing for my birthday, or what I used to do for my birthday, and not that my birthdays have been bad, but I was just really intentional, and it felt different. It really did. And I felt empowered that, hey, I just went and walked on the beach, even if I only had a couple of hours. And I think a lot of women, when they start thinking about what are those things that I love to do, or like you said, a lot of them don't even know because they've been people pleasing for so long, just don't make it so complicated. Just what are some things that you could do, that maybe 15 minutes? It doesn't have to be a 2-hour walk on the beach. It's taken me a while to get there, right? But what are just some little things? And I love that you said pre-plan that. So that when you get to that moment where you can do it, you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Many times I think it's the feeling of, okay, if I'm a people pleaser, how do I know that I'm a people pleaser, and
Mm,
how do I change that? Like you're saying, and often in your week, if you find that you're just, somebody says, what do you want to do? Or what do you want for dinner? Or where do you want to go out to eat? Or things like that.
mhm.
And you're like, I don't know, where do you want to go? Start catching yourself. Start catching yourself. I don't know. What are you eating? I don't know. What are you looking at?
So
Right?
true.
It's true. So start catching that. The more that you
Yeah.
can catch when you defer to others or when you ask for others' opinion, and then write it down. Like if you can't in the moment, write it down after, but write it down. Okay, this is what I wanted to know. This is what I waited for somebody else's opinion on. And then again, like you can use that then. Okay, so the next time somebody asks me where I want to go for dinner, here's my 3 favorite places. I'm going to say one of them. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to
Yeah.
say one of them. Right. But it's
Yeah.
starting to take back that bit of power and be able to say, yeah, you know what? I can speak up. It's okay if I speak
Yeah.
up for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a process, just like, we talk about saying no and, honoring our boundaries and our priorities. It just takes time and takes practice. And I love that you just said, like, just write it down, just start catching it. That's the way to the healing part, is just start catching when you are deflecting or deferring an answer to someone else. And I think sometimes, I don't know if you see this or feel this yourself, but it's almost like we don't trust ourselves, right? To make the right decision, or, in quotes, the right decision. And so we do just defer to, well, whatever they want must be the right thing, because we've lost that trust in ourselves to make the decision that we want.
Right, right. And often too, when we're giving that over, right, we're saying, I don't trust me, that comes out in every area of your life. So
Mm,
even if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business and you think, oh, I'm not really like that in my business. But the reality is probably most of the choices that you make that are a little bit bigger, you're checking with other people. Like if
mm,
they're doing it that way, if they think that's a good idea, or you're watching somebody else and, oh, okay, well, they're not choosing that. So that mustn't be a good idea. But it might not
hmm.
be a good idea for them, but it may be a great
Right.
one for you, right? So
Yeah. 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 So true. So I'm sure we'll come back to people pleasing at some point through the interview, but I'd love to talk a little bit more about procrastination, because this is a big one, right? And I think, again, it comes back to decision. I know a lot of ladies that I coach, it's just they don't trust themselves to make the decision, and that leads to the procrastination. So, how do you maintain a healthy balance between, managing that procrastination that just likes to show up sometimes on the daily, right?
right, right. And I'm actually going to give you a different spin on this
Okay.
because I think everybody that I talk to, when I talk about the 3 Ps, I'm like, well, there's good sides and there's bad sides. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, yeah, okay, I can see that, but not with procrastination. It's just bad. Like, it's just
Yeah.
bad. And that's not actually true.
Yeah.
So I like, let's take it back a second, and I'll give you a really good question to ask yourself at the end of this. But take it back a second. Okay, so you're procrastinating. What's the
Mhm.
purpose of that? Well, your brain is protecting you, right? Your brain is
Mhm.
telling
Yeah.
you that whatever it is, it perceives it as scary or new or difficult, or I might fail, especially if we're a perfectionist. So I'm not going to go there, or I'm going to go do some more research, or I don't know enough and I'm going to get myself to the point where I either feel safe to do it or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it because it still feels scary and whatever. And so we procrastinate. But the reality is, procrastination is a really smart tool, because if you're procrastinating because you truly don't have the skills or the tools to implement the thing that you're afraid of, then yes, you do need to get that, right? And you need
Mm-hmm.
the time to do that. However, if you're looking at it and you're deciding, I don't want to do it because it brings up a yucky feeling in your stomach, or you always go and do something else the moment that that comes up because you just don't like it, or you really aren't very good at that, so you tend not to do it because you don't get good results from it, then it might be telling you need to delegate, right? Or
Yeah.
somebody else should be doing it, not you. And then the third one, which is truly procrastination, is I just don't want to do it. And so I'm going to delay and go watch Netflix or do everything else on my list, or make up 5 other things that I needed to do today to add to the list so I don't have to get to that one and it'll get bumped to tomorrow like it has for the last 3 weeks, right? So there's
Yeah.
all of those. And I think the important part is when you find yourself procrastinating, don't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually ask yourself, why am I procrastinating? What's the reasoning behind it? So that way that you can start like weeding out, okay, this actually is something I shouldn't be doing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be doing this. And every time I come up against it, I know that. And so I don't bother doing it because I don't do a good job at it. Somebody else would be better at this. I need to maybe hire someone for this or outsource it or whatever. Or you might be saying to yourself, I'm not doing it because it brings up such uncomfortable feelings in me of feeling like I'm not good at this. I'm not a good person at this. People are going to know that I don't know what I'm doing. I have this whole feeling of imposter syndrome going on. That's a mindset. Okay. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to talk to my coach, right? I need to go to somebody and talk this through and break through this barrier so that I can get unstuck and move through this so I don't procrastinate over these types of things. So I think procrastination is a really, really good learning tool, but often
Mm-hmm.
we don't ever bother slowing down, asking the
Yeah.
question, why is it here? We just put it off.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I know someone is writing down that profusely. And I think, again, it comes down to that self-awareness and slowing down and asking yourself those questions so you can get to the root cause, right? Because if you're not getting to the root cause, then you're just going to keep doing it over and over again. And I think because you don't have, like you said, that perspective on it, and hopefully moving forward, people will, you start shaming yourself and you start, again, labeling yourself a procrastinator. And then I always do, like I have a client that I'm working with, and we're working through this exact thing right now because she's always putting things off. And that's what she's telling herself. And she just has such this cloud of shame around her that I don't finish what I start, or I don't even take the first step. And so it's been really cool to watch her break through this and to, like you said, kind of name it what it is and figure out where it's coming from. And some of the work that I do with my clients, or the work that I do using the Pro Scan actually will show this in your personality. So if you have certain levels of pace, which is your patience trait in your personality, like I'm a really high paced person. So I am very patient with myself to the point that I will just put off and put off and put off. So I'm like, oh, I got time. I'm good. I've got time, or I'll default to learning. Like you said, like I just need to learn more, when really it's not that I need to learn more. It's the mindset issue of this feels uncomfortable. My brain's trying to keep me safe. This doesn't feel safe. And so I'm just going to put it off until tomorrow. So this is just really around awareness. And like you said, really to asking yourself those questions. So I really do appreciate that perspective, because we just have to be careful not to shame ourselves in the process. Hey, friend, can I give you permission today? Like for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise, mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the 3 main issues that are keeping you stuck. Number 2, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number 3, identifying what are your next steps. We all have a next step, and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you, and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that actually for a second, because I think when it comes to shame and guilt, like guilt is a huge one under the perfectionism. Shame tends to hit with procrastination, and people pleasing very much. And I think when those feelings come up, again, like I'm always saying, like we have to get off the hamster wheel or we never change. So you have to slow down. You have to recognize it. You have to call it for what it is. But one thing that I love, and I am not a journaling person at all. Anybody that's ever heard my podcast will hear me say, like, I just don't journal. But there are moments where when something keeps coming up over and over and over, that pattern just seems so impossible not to notice. And jotting down, like, I feel guilty when I have to do this, or I feel guilty when I don't do this, or I feel, shame when, I once again say I don't want to set up the funnel, right? And I don't do it for my business. So just writing down what is the thing. And sometimes this is something that just sits there. I kind of have a page that sits inside my desk that I write these things down on. So that way, like it might take me 2, 3, 4, even 5 months before suddenly I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Like there is such a pattern here that every one of these or every second or third of these is around the idea of something technical. Okay, you know what? Do I feel like technically I am not good? Like I can't do back end work. Is that my issue? And is that really true? And let's have this conversation. And if it is, what areas am I feeling that in? And is there somebody I know that I could talk to about this or that could help me or help me structure things better? Because most of the time it is partially true, right? That we actually maybe need some help. And it's partially not true. Like we actually are quite capable because we've gotten as far as we have and we're capable of learning. So sometimes it's just having that conversation of, okay, you know what? I'm not comfortable because I'm not fully fluent in this, but that doesn't mean that I can't be, a technical immigrant and be able to get in there and learn that, even though it wasn't natural to me. And so again, I find just jotting when those feelings come up, because there generally is a pattern, and it feels so much better when you realize, you know what? It's just this one thing. It doesn't mean it's in every area of my business. It's this one thing. And then we start to let go of shame because we realize, okay, no, this is just an area I need a little more support, and I'm going to get that. It's nothing to feel bad about, right? But often when we don't really know, it's just that haze out there that there's this thing, then we make it into this huge thing that I'm not capable. I mustn't be really good at this business. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing, right? And we start to blow it up, and then it just gets worse and spirals.
Yeah, it kind of leads into that all or nothing mentality, right? Like either everything is working or nothing is working. And it's not working because I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a procrastinator. So it does kind of lend to that. And I think, again, just the pause and the self-reflection and the digging deeper into, okay, what's the real issue here? What's the real answer here? And for me, I'm always checking my thoughts, because I know my thoughts are what are producing the feelings. So what am I thinking about myself? What am I thinking about this task? What am I thinking about, this circumstance right now that's producing that feeling of shame or that feeling of guilt? And that really does take a slow down, and it takes practice doing that if you haven't been kind of capturing your thoughts, and then being like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here, and then how to move forward. But we just try to change the behaviors before we check our thoughts and check our emotions around it. And that doesn't work 100% of the time. So really just pausing to check your thoughts, I think, is a really, really key point. So thanks for bringing that up. Whether you're a journaler or not, just being able to jot, like you said, some notes down on a piece of paper will help you to see it for what it is. We do this when we're trying to do like a time audit. We write down what we're spending our time on, and then you can clearly see where you're spending your time and where you're not spending your time. Same thing when we're trying to change our diet, right? We look and we write down, what are we eating every day? That's the best way to get a visual or a real representation of what's going on. So same thing here. If you find yourself falling into procrastination or perfectionism or the people pleasing, like really just pause and take some time to write a few things down. You don't have to get, I'm a new journaler. So I used to be the same way you were. In the last 2 years, I really have kind of dove into it, and it has been super helpful just for self-coaching. But what advice would you have for the mompreneurs that are listening today that maybe struggle with the urge to constantly seek approval and validation from others?
Oh, it is so, first of all, it's so normal. Like, just understand that that's a very normal thing, especially if you're a newer mom or a newer entrepreneur, because you have nothing to gauge things by, right? So I would just like really, really say to yourself, first of all, like, be kind, have
Yeah.
compassion for where you're at. Again, so that you don't go into this guilt and shame spiral that can often stop your business before you ever even get it off the ground.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is to realize, okay, your business will never look like somebody else's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will never have the exact plan, the exact blueprint, the exact same steps. It doesn't matter what course you're doing, what
Yeah.
coach you're working with, you're an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are having expectations of yourself to look a certain way, that's the first thing, right? That's the first
Yeah.
thing is why. Why are those expectations there? What is it that you think you need to be in order to be successful? What is success to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just starting to really peel things back and be able to ask yourself, like, am I willing to put in the work that I need to do? What does that look like for me? How many hours is that? What is that as far as family time as opposed to, work time, and starting to lay, what does your ideal life look like around this? Because
Mm-hmm.
10 years from now, you're not going to create it. You're going to create it now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be implemented going forward. And if you don't take that time now, that's where you're going to start to be looking to everybody else in
Yeah.
order to decide what it should look like. So if you know right now, what is your ideal business looking like? What is your time looking like in the day and the week and the weekends, on holidays? What do you do to relax? What do you do for self-care? What do you do to have a good time with your family? What parts of your business do you think you're going to love? What parts do you think you won't love? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the main thing, the more that you can lay out, and this is where, like I say, I don't journal, but I love writing. So, start laying things out for you on, okay, this is what I'm clear on right now today. And that
Yeah.
way, every time you have to make a decision, every time somebody else decides to stick their nose in and give their opinion, you can go back to that plan and you can say, okay, does this hold true with what I've already said about myself and my business and my life? And if it doesn't, you know what to do. That just
Yeah.
gets set aside. And if it fits and it's good advice and good opinion and it makes sense for what you want, yeah, then go ahead and follow through. And it helps you to say yes and no, right?
Yeah.
For those times where it's so hard to say no. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't fit, then that's a no. And it's far easier to say no when you know clearly what your beliefs and values are that you hold true to, than if you're not sure and then you just
Yeah.
take on everything, right,
Yeah.
from everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. If everything is a yes, if everything's a priority, then nothing is a priority. And I
Yes.
think, like you said, that's where a lot of the lack of confidence comes in being empowered in your yeses and empowered in your nos, is you haven't truly defined for you what does success look like for you. Like I remember, even a year ago, just thinking like, I kind of got wrapped up in people I was following, right, on social media, and they're building these huge empires. And, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then when I really kind of sat down and settled with myself, like, I want to have a huge impact, but you don't have to build a big empire to have a huge impact in the work that you do every day. And so that really was freeing for me to be like, okay, I mean, I have a certain level of growth that I want to see in my company, but it doesn't have to be a big empire. And that was so freeing for me in the decisions I was making and what I was going to invest in, and, how much time I was going to put into it. In this season, for now, it's not about the big empire. So I think that's really important for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, you could be following people who that's their goal and that's their dream and that's right for them, to build this huge empire and to have multiple, products and multiple offers and all of those things. But for you, it might just be the simple of one-on-one coaching, right? Or writing a book. And then that's it. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think often, especially in the world that we live in today, like, bigger is better, right? Faster
Yeah.
is better. Doing
Yeah.
more is better. Everything like supersized. And I think really, if we asked ourselves for, in our heart, what do we want? What do we want the day to feel like? How
Mm-hmm.
much stress are we prepared to handle and to go
Mm-hmm.
through? Then that looks very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be times that, I mean, you and I have both come from, backgrounds where we probably have hustled and pushed because that's what we
Yeah.
first learned, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is nobody really wants to stay in that. And there are definitely times where you need to move more quickly. You need to take on more. There will be more stress. And then there's times of like pulling back and relaxing and allowing you to recover. And again, like that can all still be decided now. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
decided in the moment when suddenly you realize, oh, I'm totally burnt out because I never actually planned and had an idea of what life was supposed to look like as I'm doing this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Since you brought up burnout, that is a question I like to ask every guest. If you have experienced burnout, and how did it show itself for you? For some people, it's just lack of inspiration. For some people, it's physical exhaustion. Some people, it's hospital visits. I mean, if you've experienced it, how did it show up for you? And then what are some things that you did? Maybe some self-care, like how did that play into not being a perfectionist anymore, procrastinating? Like, what did you do to kind of work your way out of the burnout?
Yeah, I would have to say I probably haven't experienced like complete and total burnout. I've always been very, very self-aware. And so I think
Hmm.
I've always caught myself before going there. But the closest that I've ever been at was when I was at my worst for perfectionism, because again, it's all or nothing,
Yeah.
go at 100% and then some, in order to make things happen. And thank goodness I had a friend that as I was trying to do everything just right and was getting totally overwhelmed in the fact that like nobody else seemed to do it my way and understand that this was the right way and the only way and the best way. A really good friend just said to me, you are really, really hard on yourself. You have these massive expectations that mostly you achieve, but at the same time, you beat yourself up if you do even one little thing off of that plan. And yet you've done
Mhm.
99% of it exactly how you wanted. And I'm just wondering, do you think you're God? And I was like, what? Excuse me? Like, I'm horrified and
Oh,
shocked and
that's a
thinking,
good friend. That's a good friend.
yeah. And we need these, right? We
Yeah.
need these friends that speak up in love. But
Yeah.
she's just like, what do you think? Like, you are that good that you can hold yourself to that standard? And I'm like, oh, I'm horrified. Like, I'm embarrassed. Do not feel that way about myself. I am like, do I come across as knowing it all? Like, oh, this is
Yeah.
horrible. And then, really realizing, yeah, no, like I am not perfect. There's no way for me to be perfect. There's no way that I'm going to be 100% accurate all the time. There's no way that my way is the right way all the time. Like I am not
Mhm.
God. And so suddenly that really changed my perspective on having to be perfect and
Mhm.
that it's okay to fail and that that's a learning opportunity. And how on earth am I going to tweak and become better if I actually don't fail and I only take myself to that degree that I know I can handle, even though it's, maybe higher than other people's, it's
Yeah.
still not good enough for me. And so like, what am I thinking here? And so that really started the process of, I can't keep this up. I am going to burn out and
Mhm.
there's no way that we can continue at this pace. So I think that was the first time where I actually sat back and was like, you know what? I'm going to be way more hands off and I'm going to allow others to actually have some place in my business and let others' opinions be okay, even if
Mhm.
they're not mine. And so that was a massive process and it was not easy, but it definitely, I think, saved me from what would have been burnout within those next 6 to 8 months at the rate that I was going.
Yeah. Yeah. Community is so important, and having those mentors or those coaches or friends that are willing to tell you that tough love, right? Willing to risk the relationship to tell you what you need to hear or not what you want to hear. I've had so many moments like that. And honestly, kind of similar. She didn't ask if I was God, but she was like, I think you forget that you're human. She's like, I think you forget that you're a human and humans make mistakes and we're not perfect. And, you don't have to say it the exact right way. You're probably going to say it wrong. You're probably going to mess it up, but it's okay. You're human. And it is a really good reminder to all of the listeners today that failure is a part of the process to success. I like to look at failure as not a character flaw, but an event that happened, right? Like there's things that are going to work in my business and things that are not. And I just figured out a way that didn't work. So let's move on to the next thing. There are going to be some things in my marriage that didn't work. That's okay. I'm not going to take it personal. I'm just going to try something different. And having that perspective also helps you to see, hey, failing is failing forward, right? As long as I keep getting back up, and having that community and that support is so important because you can kind of get in your own world, right? In your own bubble, and where you just are driving, like you said, hustling so hard 24/7, 365. And at the same time, beating yourself up that you're not further along than you think you should be. So if you had the opportunity to just share one final thought with all the mompreneurs that are listening to this podcast today, what would you want to leave them with?
I think I guess one of the most important things that I ever learned in this process was that I don't have control of everything, even
Mm,
if I think that I can. And it's okay to understand that you can control, your world and some of the things in it, but there's always going to be things that happen that are going to hit you out of the blue. A child is sick,
hmm
somebody decides that they're not going to do the thing that you needed done at this time, or, just something that all. And I think the more that we become resilient and
mm,
able to pivot and notice, okay, you know what, this doesn't ruin my world. If I have to put it off a day, a week, a month, I can still move forward. I can still take action on the things that are doable for me today. None of that has to lead you to procrastination. None of
hmm
it has to lead you to like sucking up to somebody to people please in order to make it happen because it feels out of control. None of it makes you have to suddenly be like all on 100% miss perfection to get it done because now something else is in the way and now I'm going to stay up till 3 in the morning to do it. Like some of that, just the whole idea of trying to control your world so tightly is something that we need to start learning to let go of and be willing to move with the flow more so that first of all our brain is more resilient. It helps us to be more workable and enjoyable to be around, and it
Yeah.
also lets us step back and be more healthy, even physically more healthy. So I think just letting go bit by bit of not having to fully control every circumstance that comes your way.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's really hard to do, but a great thing to just keep working at, and never giving up on yourself and learning to just let go and relax through the process. So thank you so much for coming on today. Tell everyone, where's the best place to connect with you? I know the podcast, you might want to talk about that again, or where are some other places they can connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is pursueprogress.com. So that's probably the easiest place. You can get to my podcast there as well. And then if you do want to just go straight to the podcast, it's Imperfection in Progress on any platform that you listen to. And I love hearing from people. So if you want to send me a note, if you want to tell me that you listened to this episode and just connect, that would be awesome. I always respond personally. And so feel free to reach out.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I definitely love hearing back from my people. And we just, you and I both have a heart to serve women in this area. And I think it's really important that we know, like, what are you struggling with? What was helpful? So we can laser focus a little bit more on that. So thank you for taking the time today to come on and encourage my audience, my listeners, and share about the three Ps. You can't talk about them enough. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Martine. And thank you to everybody that listened.
Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.